What's up? Welcome back to the third episode of my interview series. Today I'm talking with Dominic Romano, who is an amazing producer, mixing engineer, and a singer-songwriter himself. For the first time ever, all of the technical stuff with recording one of these episodes actually worked. We had an awesome conversation about production and mixing, and we ended up focusing a lot on collaboration and I think the importance of collaboration in music in general and in bettering your own skills. So let's get right into it. Hope you enjoy.
My name is Dominic Romano. I am a producer for songwriters, a mixing engineer, and a songwriting artist myself. I help people take their songs and make them sound as powerful and as wonderful as I know they can be.
Awesome. So we'll talk a bit about how you got to where you are now, because I know you do a lot of really awesome work. And so first question is when did you start doing music at all? When was your first adventure into any kind of music?
Sure. Yeah. I've been playing music my whole life, pretty much. My mom was in this Balkan folk music band when I was young, and I think my first I did little children's choirs and stuff, but she had a fiddle player for that band quit, and I was 5 years old, and I was like, Mom, I could do that, so the band doesn't have to lose its player, and I took up violin from there.
Cool.
And so you could say that was my first foray into music. But yeah, I studied violin. I started on classical and moved into more Celtic, traditional Irish fiddle stuff and bluegrass. Hit high school and wanted to be able to sing a little bit more. And at the time, I didn't have the amazing examples that we have now of people who are able to accompany themselves on fiddle and sing at the same time. So I kind of gave up fiddle and violin and started going into guitar and songwriting and stuff from there.
That reminds me a lot. Last episode I had Harley Eblin on. That reminds me a lot of his progression from classical into that sort of bluegrass area. That's really interesting. That you're not the first.
Absolutely. No,
Yeah.
he and we just had we had a video chat one time where I was asking. We had a collaboration that we ended up doing, but it was one of our initial video calls where I was just like, "Hey, Harley, do you want to chat? Let's do it." And he's like, "Yeah," and we immediately just hit it off based on our similar trajectories of styles, this very niche form of fiddle, Americana fiddle, Celtic inspired sounds, and we totally hit it off from that. We have a
You
lot
would.
of similarities.
That's so cool. You kind of, the difference I think here though is you started off with the Americana sort of, or I guess bluegrass. Sorry, you said Balkan fiddle music. You said, right?
I said Balkan folk music. So
Folk
it's very
music.
Eastern European
Okay.
styles. It wasn't necessarily just Balkan, but Eastern European styles. Lots of strange harmonies, strange to a Western ear.
Yeah.
Close harmonies and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that being said, that was my mom. That was and me going to all the band practices and sitting on the floor and being like, "This is cool," and just getting that in my ear from a very early age.
So the switch to classical, was that because you played violin, and when you do violin, you do classical?
Pretty much.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It was totally a this is where you go to take violin lessons, and this is how they start you, and we don't know where else to start.
Yeah.
And then my teacher just gave me one fiddle tune, and I was like, that I want to do more of that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, as a violinist myself, I relate there. You start off in classical, that's just what you do, and I love classical music. It's great. I'm still kind of studying classical music at university right now, but yeah, I always leaned a bit away from that, and I love doing film songs and violin. And my teacher was really great about letting me just kind of pick my own repertoire, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah, soundtrack kind of stuff.
Yeah. That was my favorite to play. So how long did you do that classical training for?
I did the classical training for probably 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
Before pretty much switching over to fiddle music draining my classical teacher's repertoire of fiddle music. And then she basically said, if you want to keep doing this, you got to find like a fiddle teacher. And then I went and did another 5 or 6 years with another teacher who's specifically all about the Irish fiddle stuff. And
awesome. Yeah. So where does that bring us? Like how old would you be there? Where were you in your life at that point?
Yeah, so that was like hitting high school, basically. In high school, I took up guitar and I started songwriting, and I started recording myself. I found that using GarageBand, I had like my mom's laptop, just with GarageBand of 2007 or whenever it was, and I'd take that into my room and just record as best I could. And I found that I could make myself sound better than I was.
Right.
Which was I was like, oh, this is good. I like recording. I can because I've always had a really good ear. And my like technical skills is something that have developed with time. But something that I have always been able to do is listen, hear what's wrong, what's different, what's unique, and react to that accordingly. So like recording was my first my first time really utilizing that to make something sound really good off of a high school age Dominic songwriting skills.
Nice. And how, for me, when I first got into, I was scared of anything techie involving music for the longest time. It wasn't until almost like about 2 years ago I started like recording, producing, and the second I did it, like it was hard at first, but I loved it and I loved learning it. How was that experience for you? Did it come easy? Did it take a bit longer? Was it frustrating?
If you listen to some of my early recordings, you would not say that it came easy.
You have stuff out from like 2015 or something. Like you've been like releasing music for a while, haven't you? Yeah.
Yeah, 2015 was my like graduation. I'll get there in a sec.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
But yeah, the developing the like skills I did throughout high school, but it wasn't until like I did probably a couple years of just like recording on my own, like freshman, sophomore year of high school, of 9th and 10th grade, where I was just in the bedroom recording and developing the skills. So it didn't come like super quick or super easy. There was a lot to develop as a skill, as with anything you do. And then eventually I started reaching out to friends who were into music and started recording them, and got a little USB microphone, super cheap USB microphone, and started recording them. And then I hit the time that I had to decide what I want to do for college. And I'm like, well, the thing I'm most passionate about right now and most excited about is recording, is developing music. And so I ended up going to Bennington College in Vermont on the East Coast for a dual degree, if you will. It's kind of a make your own degree system, but a dual degree in recording arts and music.
Okay.
And so that brings me to my kind of end of college time. My project was basically make an album, which was just an awesome experience. Like, one thing, like you said you're in college right now, right?
I'm in my third year. Yeah.
The most amazing thing about college for me was you have so many people who are there and who are so skilled.
Yeah.
And no one expects or needs payment because everyone wants to make the most amazing thing possible. And you're not in like the professional world yet in the same way.
Yeah.
And so I got, my teachers to play on my album. I got so many different people to play. And it still stands up as one of my favorite projects I've done, the kind of first album I released.
Yeah, that's so fun. Like, that's been my favorite thing as well. Like, I like a lot of my classes also, but it's the connections I've been able to make. Like, I've met amazing musicians, and I had it kind of weird because my first year was like the COVID year, so we were all online and stuff. But starting like this year and last year, it's been really amazing, like meeting people. I guess I have a good question. Like, are there anyone that you've met from college who you've like continued working with?
So I've had a couple people. Probably the most frequent one has been one of my teachers, actually.
Oh, cool.
His name is John Kirk, and he plays every stringed instrument under the sun.
Nice.
And I had him play banjo and violin. Oh, I didn't, not violin on the first project, but banjo and mandolin. And I've just continued to kind of go back and ask him for those instruments afterwards, when I have a projects that seem relevant for it. And he's, incredibly good. But I have like various people that I connect with from time to time, that have asked me to do, mixing projects or, no one that's done a full production from college yet. Your first interviewee, right?
Yeah.
Charles, I was talking to him the other day and he was saying that's mainly his connections from Berkeley is like one of the main
we talked about that
of that
no, absolutely. I mean, and then obviously Berkeley's a great place, but it's so cool, like the people you're able to meet in these programs. So okay, so you studied you said sound record, or was it production?
Recording arts and music.
Okay.
Recording arts in this system was a fairly like comprehensive, it encompassed like production and arrangement and stuff like that as well.
Okay.
Just the program they happened to have a lot of that.
Was there any particular focus, or I guess like was there maybe even just like a class in particular, or was there like something that really resonated with you from that experience?
I had the joy of having the school go through several different like main production teachers in the time I was there.
Okay.
And so I had the first teacher I had was Scott Lehrer, mainly does like live sound design for Broadway.
Cool.
He's won multiple I'm forgetting the Broadway awards. Big Broadway awards. Whatever those ones are called.
Okay, yeah.
Tonys, that's what I are. He's
right.
won multiple Tonys for his work.
That's
and he's
awesome.
Worked with,
Wow.
like Meredith Monk and like a lot of really cool artists. Then they switched over to Julie Last, who is also amazing. It was really awesome to have a female instructor because it's such a male-centric industry, basically. And she'd worked with like Joni Mitchell. Is the name I'm looking
no
for.
way! Oh wow!
She worked with Joni Mitchell, and she was on one of John Lennon's like earliest albums as like an assistant engineer. Wow. She gave a lot of the information that I carry with me in terms of the working with artists and developing songs to be exactly what the song wants to be. She really gave me a lot of direction in terms of that. So I guess I'm changing your question a little bit less to from a particular class, but to like these particular elements of
that was just one potential direction. No, that's fantastic. And I think something you've emphasized a lot, like you mentioned there, and that I've noticed from your story is like collaboration. Because you said even when you were starting out, when you just had that USB mic, you were already like working with other musicians, and obviously like that's so integral to music. That's something that like I'm getting into kind of late, because I really started getting serious about music during the pandemic, and it was weird.
Sure.
It was weird and like isolating. I still like learned a lot through it on my own, but that process of collaboration is just so crucial.
The process of collaboration, the process of working with a team to develop new ideas is something that I find super crucial. Like I have the skills to develop a song completely on my own.
Yeah.
That being said, like my favorite things that I've ever produced, mixed, recorded have come from collaborating with people, taking their ideas, having a team that really brings new things to the table and has a very solid understanding of the goal to working together. If you don't have that, collaboration could be a nightmare. But if you have someone that really understands what you want from your song, what your song needs, like that process of having a teammate, having a collaborator is one of the best things that I found.
Yeah, absolutely.
In making music.
I guess, this is a good point, I guess, to talk about then your process. Just you can take that to mean what you want, because I know you do a lot of different things with your own stuff as a producer, as a mixing engineer. I guess why don't we talk about like your own music to start off, because you have quite a lot of music that you've released. I really love Red Moon Night, by the way. That's my
thank you.
Is that that's the most have you released something since then?
It's the most recent one.
And that was with Harley, which I think that might have been how I found out that you existed. I don't know. But yeah, yeah, wonderful song. So what's your songwriting process, I guess, for like just from the start, from writing the song to bringing it to life? Like, I guess, how collaborative is that as well for your own music?
So you talked about being a genre hopper yourself, or not being able to fit into a genre
Yeah.
box yourself.
Yeah.
I definitely find that a lot with my music, and it kind of, the process changes a little bit with the style that I'm going for. I would say mainly I'm working in the kind of indie folk-ish
Yeah.
genre. And I mean, that process really is like sit down with a guitar,
Yeah.
write something, find something that feels meaningful to me, try and write about it as best I can. Importantly, don't stop myself from writing. Don't like be overly critical of myself as I'm writing.
Right.
Because I have like this producer brain side of me, which is geared to like look at things and be like, okay, that isn't as good as can be. How can I make it better? But when I'm like trying to develop ideas in the process of songwriting, it's not that helpful for actually getting ideas out. It's a little bit critical in that sense.
So you'd say, do you kind of separate your songwriting and producing side then?
When I'm
Okay.
songwriting, I try and just sit down and songwrite. I don't worry about who it's going to market towards, what it's going to sound like in a production sense. I just sit down and try and write something meaningful.
Right.
Then once I have something meaningful and I really like where it's at, then I put my producer cap back on and look at it and say like, edit it down, see if there's anything that needs something like that. And then also think about it, say like, what kind of a song is this? Is this is this an indie folk song? Could this be a pop song? What does it want to be? And some of that process happens in tandem with recording. Because I have the privilege of having a recording studio. And so I can kind of try ideas out as I go, and develop songs that way, which I'm very lucky, and is a lot of my writing process is in tandem with recording, because it's such an integral part of me.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, because that's always going to be interesting as someone who has like the ability to take a song from the beginning to the end, because that's generally, there are some people who just make their own songs. They produce, mix, master everything. But for the most part, that's not how music is made. Someone mixes it, someone masters it. There's just different people involved. And so it's interesting having all those skills to know when to step back or when to separate, like for the betterment of the art, I guess, because you can do it, but at the same time, having other people involved tends to always be better, just because, I don't know, more ears is better, right? I don't know how else to describe it.
Yeah, no, like, I mean, in a similar vein to what I was saying earlier, like collaboration is like the joy of the process. I feel like a lot of times that collaboration comes in for me with Red Moon Night, for example. Like, I wrote this song, I recorded a lot of it, and I had this idea, and then it wasn't until Harley and I had this idea for collaboration. I was like, that is what the song needs. It needs Harley's like magic touch, if you will. It needs that kind of emotiveness of the cellos that's kind of accented by what I can do in mixing, but like it needed some sort of, I'll say, unexpected element from the things that I do. It needed something else.
Right. Let's talk about that more, because I love that song. And what I'll do right now, if you're watching and you haven't listened to it, I will link it up there. So go have a listen. And I want to ask you a few things about it. So, like, first of all, I think so Harley did cellos, obviously, and he did some production on it as well, right?
He did. Yeah, he did. His main part was the cello things, but he added some percussion and a piano part that was really cool.
Okay.
We kind of went back and forth on that a little bit, because I had some of these elements that were already in place, and that he had a couple of ideas. So it was very, I'll say, extra collaborative in that sense.
Right.
And so we definitely like developed that song up together.
Cool.
And then the cellos were just the star for sure.
As always with Harley, yeah.
As always.
Yeah, but my favorite part of the song, it has to be the everything familiar is ripped away. um
Yeah.
and then of course like at the end when
Thank
it
you.
when it actually all gets ripped away, it's so good. So how at what point in the songwriting process did that idea come around? When you wrote that line, did you hear that production choice, or did that production choice come later?
When I wrote the line, and when I recorded it, I had a less good version of it, of just like my guitar building up and then it kind of falling away. So I did have that like concept in my mind. And then when Harley sent me like the first draft of the cellos, I was like, this sounds really good. And I think that was actually the only part that I was like, I heard what he did on the earlier chorus, and I was like, I came back to him and I said, what if we did that? But just like give me so much more leading into that, and then I think on that one I actually straight up chopped it so that
Yeah, yeah.
it was super abrupt, way more abrupt than you could physically do with a cello without it squeaking.
Right, true.
But like, so yeah, that was definitely a concept that when I heard his part, it it just made it all the clearer for me, and kind of went back and forth on.
Cool.
Yeah, I always love when the lyrics can reflect
Yeah.
the music, can reflect the emotion all at once. Like those are the magic times of your songs.
Yeah.
Is when all three come together to work towards whatever you're trying to achieve. And so that was definitely one of those moments. I'm so glad it translated to you as well.
Yeah, no,
It's,
absolutely.
it's my favorite moment as well.
Yeah. Oh, come on, it has to be, right? So yeah. Yeah, awesome. Let's talk more now about production and mixing, because that's the bulk of the work that you do, at least like right now, right?
Yes, currently I've worked more fully in the mixing field and production field. And I write and I make my own songs whenever I have a little bit of time.
Right, yeah. Do you lean towards one? Do you do more mixing, more production?
I think I do more mixing.
Okay.
I do more mixing because mixing is a little bit more universal. One of the things post college is I got a job at a local recording studio named Bongo Boy Studio, and I've had been working there for like 7 years now or so.
Okay.
And it's an open door studio, and so it allows pretty much anyone to come in. So I have had this like breadth of styles
So,
that I've come through.
Open Door Studio, like, what exactly does that mean?
Yeah, sorry. So open door studio being as opposed to a project studio where it only takes you like apply to basically do a project there, and it has to like be a good fit.
Okay.
This is basically like anyone who could afford to book the studio gets to have my time, and
Okay.
I get to problem solve whatever comes out.
Okay, cool.
And so that has given me a huge breadth from a lot of, good songwriter projects, but also like rap artists and jazz stuff and classical stuff and this,
Right.
super cool funk bands, which has definitely given me a lot of mixing diversity, if
Yeah.
you will. So I would say mainly work, more often work in mixing, just because I can do more of that more widely.
It's
And then
less genre
production-
specific, I suppose.
It's less genre specific, and the skills that I have are able to apply a little bit more universally. Whereas production is the kind of thing where like I need to make sure that I have a vision for the artist.
Yeah.
I can't
Yeah.
I can't produce anyone. Like the first thing I say is let's sit down and talk about your project, because I want to produce something amazing for you, and I want to make sure that I'm the right person to do that.
Yeah.
Right? I want your project to be the best it can be. Let's make sure that I'm the right person to bring it to that space.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I've just gotten in the past year or so, I've gotten into doing a little bit of work for other just people that I know. But yeah,
Nice.
I had a lot of like, it was a big learning experience working on this kind of cinematic pop kind of song. It was just outside of my comfort zone, and I produced it, and yeah, it was difficult. It was like a learning experience, because I feel like again, I don't really know what my genre is, but I have a certain sound that I stick to, and I feel like I've developed a skill set that works best for that sound. I imagine that's a relatively common experience. We all gravitate more towards certain sounds. But yeah, how do you find what I guess okay, with production specifically, what's the most like out of your comfort zone project that you've worked on?
I had this. So I'm not religious. I had this like Christian artist come into the studio and really want me to produce this project, and she played a little bit, and I was like, okay, I hear the music. As we went through the project, she started having these different things where she was wanting something very particular to the genre of like Christian rock, but having a hard time giving me any references for it, and I didn't have the vernacular of that genre, if you will.
Right.
And so I ended up having to do a lot of research, which was good. It also, I had a harder time connecting with the lyrical content of the song because I'm not a Christian myself. And so I think that was probably one of the more difficult ones to kind of come through, and it ended up sounding good, and she was happy with where it went, but it was definitely a process to get there, as opposed to like Luna Keller, for example, where I like really just, clicked right away with her music.
Right.
And we had our talk about what her next whole album is going to look like. And that's going to be, we had the same vision for where she wanted to go with her music. And,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you start? How did you first get in contact with Luna, and how did you start working with her?
It was a series of little like interactions. So I produced this band called the Carmenauts, which this like indie folk pop rock genre bending band, but super cool. And we sent one of the songs to Luna for her podcast. Why doesn't everyone know about these songs? And I started just talking to her there a little bit. And we followed each other on Instagram. A little while later, she's doing a series called, I did think just musical hangouts or something, where we go on Instagram Live together and play songs. And so she invited me to be a guest on that, and we played a little bit there. And a little while after that, I asked her to, if she would like to sing some vocals on a song that I wrote called Never in My Dreams.
Yeah.
Which was, to this day, one of my highest performing songs on.
That's right. Yeah.
And one of my favorite songs that I've written. But kind of developed from there, and then from working with me on that, she was liked working with me and decided that we'd like to work together on more things.
Cool.
So it's been a very natural build over time.
Would you say for most of the people you work with, is that sort of a typical process for, I guess, getting to know them first and then working with them?
That was definitely like a more long-term getting to know you. Like I said, for production products, I really like to know the person, make sure I'm a good fit for their songs, see where they're going. I think for mixing, it can be a little bit more like, hey, Dominic, I know you do mixing. I have a song I think would be a good fit. Let's chat about it. But it can be, a 10, 15-minute conversation rather than quite as long of a time. But it's definitely I definitely like to be on the same page as the person, and we can get that fairly quickly.
Right. I feel like we've been implying that mixing is less creative than it is throughout this whole thing, because it really is a very artistic and creative thing. There's a song can sound. There could be two different songs based on the way that you mix something. It's
definitely a hugely creative process. I don't mean to imply it's not creative at all. I think what I've been trying to get at is that there's a skill set and there's a skill set with production and like a understanding that I don't always need as much of for mixing. I still need to understand the song very deeply, but I don't need to play any new parts for it. I don't need to develop things in that way. So there's a different. It is very creative. It's very crucial.
I like your framing that it's more of a skill set thing than anything. I think that makes a lot of sense. I spent about a year and a half not understanding the difference between production and mixing. Having gotten into production in this very like modern era of you do it all yourself in your home studio, I didn't really understand what mixing was. But with my latest project, my first album, I just kind of produced all myself, and then I got it mastered. I just got it as good as I could get it to sound, and then sent it off to a mastering engineer. Latest project I got mixed as well, and there's a big difference. Partially just having someone else's ear on it, but also a trained mixing engineer who like specializes in that and really has that skill set. Just it brings that
was Charles.
Charles, yeah. Charles did a fantastic job. It brought so much.
He did a really great job.
So much energy, so much clarity. And yeah, I didn't know what I was missing out on until then, but yeah, it was awesome.
It's amazing what you can do with mixing. Like it's a night and day difference if you get someone who understands a song and has the skills to bring it to life. Like it's a night and day difference for sure.
Did you we're going back a bit now, but did you get into mixing back in college or afterwards? How do you end up getting specifically into mixing?
It was part of the recording arts. So I was doing it in college for sure. As part of the recording arts degree, if you will, was learning everything from the recording itself to the mixing to mastering, just kind of the whole process. And obviously production in the middle there between recording and mixing. But when I started working at the local studio out of college, I just kept like everyone who came into the studio, like that would be an expectation, is that I mix their stuff when it's done. I have had a few projects that like would record and then want to take it to mix themselves, but for the most part it was take the skills that I have, apply them to these many different genres, I talked about the ear that I have, like the big skill of having a good ear, I guess, of applying that to all these different genres and different situations. And so I kind of developed more mixing there. And then it's been, and then it's been the pandemic where it got shut down for months.
Yeah.
That I really have gone into more remote work in that way, and discovered I really like it.
Yeah. We'll try to wrap up around here, but I have another big question, specifically as it would be more so as a mastering engineer, but I guess also as a mixing engineer. How much of a perfectionist would you say that you are? Because that's something I struggle with. I think that's why I've geared a little bit away from those final steps, that mixing and mastering. I do the production and then I am like, okay, that's it. Because I don't know, I find myself to be a bit of a perfectionist that way, and it's hard to how good are you at being like, this is done?
I'm okay at saying things are done. I feel like there's a feeling I have when everything's in the right place. And it feels right.
Right. Okay.
And it doesn't have, and like the idea of perfect is something that I've had to not worry about as much. Like something being perfect is not as important as something being powerful.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I try and gear myself towards now, is instead of chasing perfection, chasing something that's powerful, either emotionally or sonically, or something that hits the listener, and putting myself, and the way I know something is done is when I try and put myself in that frame of mind of being a new listener and listen to it and hear that, have an emotional reaction, hear that nothing takes me out of it. I guess that's the perfectionist side, but like nothing removes me from that place of power, of emotion, of sentiment, or whatever it is. That's how I know something's done.
That is very wise and and sounds hard. I can't imagine doing that myself, but yeah, that I love that. Like that's fantastic. That's going in a short clip
Okay, good.
That's
good.
the preview.
I got a sound bite thing here. Good.
All right, so I hope you enjoyed that conversation. I had a lot of fun, and as always, I'm learning so much from every episode of this series, so that's always such an awesome experience for me. If you like my content and you appreciate what I do and you want to see more, please consider supporting me over on Patreon. The link is the first in my description. I offer a lot of bonus exclusive content over there, so check it out. Consider supporting because it helps me out a ton, and it's the best way to support me as an artist and as a content creator. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the episode. I'll catch you next time. Bye.